Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I am going to do Unit 6 of Class 7, that is Towns, Traders and Craftspersons. In medieval India, towns were not all the same. Some were administrative centers and others were temple towns and many were ports or trading hubs. And sometimes one town performed all these roles together. For perfect example is Tanjore, the capital of Cholas. Next, the temples were not just places of worship, they were centers of economy and society. The rurals built grand temples to show devotion and power. They gave temples land and gold to fund daily rituals, feed pilgrims, pay priests, and hold festivals. Soon, traders, artisans, and workers settled nearby, and that's how temple towns grew. For example, Somnath in Gujarat, Kanchipuram and Madura in Tamil Nadu, and Tirupati in Andhra Pradesh. And these become urban hubs, not only religiously important but also rich centers of craft and trade. Even pilgrimage centers developed into towns like Vrindavan in Uttar Pradesh and Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu. One special example is Ajmer, the capital of Chauhan kings and later a Mughal Suba. Here the Sufi saint Khwaja Munuddin Chisti settled in 12th century, attracting people from all regions. Nearby lies Pushkar Lake, another ancient pilgrimage site showing how faith and trade lived side by side. By the 8th century, India was dotted with small but active towns. Most of them grew out of large villages. They had Mantapika, that is, or Mandi, that is a workplace where nearby villages sold their produce. The market streets, called Hatta, today's Haat, were lined with shops, and different sheets were preserved for different crafts, that is, potters, smiths, oil pressers, and sugar makers. The traders traveled far and wide to buy horses and salt and betel nuts and saffron and spices. Nearby, the samantas or zamindars often built fortified places, collected taxes, and sometimes gave the right to collect taxes to temples. That is recorded in inscriptions that still survive today. So even in small towns, we see the roots of urban administration and taxation. Trade in medieval India was vibrant and diverse. At the end were small traders, that is, hawkers and peddlers, selling goods in local markets. At the other end were the large merchants' guilds and communities trading across seas and continents. Let's look at some examples. The first one is Banjaras. They are traveling traders who moved in caravans, often carrying food grains, salt, and horses. And next one is Manigramam and the Nana Jesi Guild. The famous in South India, trading with Southeast Asia and China. Next one is Chettiars and Marwari Oswals became the leading merchant families of India. And Gujarati traders, both Hindu Banyans and Muslim Bhoras, traded with Arabs, East Africa and China. India's goods, especially spices and textiles, were world famous. The spices like pepper, nutmeg and dried ginger became must-have in Europe cooking. The fine cotton textile from India were luxury export. In return, Indian traders brought home gold, ivory, silver from foreign lands. The ports on the west coast like Surat were filled with Arab, Persian, Jewish and Chinese merchants. The goods sold in India eventually reached European market through Italian traders and fetching huge profit. This growing global demand later attracted the European East India Companies, changing India's trade forever. Medieval India was known for its craftsmanship. For example, Bidri work from Bidar in Karnataka, inlay design using silver and copper. And second one is Vishwakarma community, that is goldsmiths, blacksmiths and carpenters. They built temples, tanks and palaces. And next one is weavers like the Salier and Kaikkollar communities who became prosperous and even donated to temples. Every region had its speciality, that is in cotton, silk, bronze or stone, making India a land of incredible artisanal diversity. Next, a closer look of three great towns, that is Hampi, Surat and Machilipatnam. The first one is Hampi. It is located on the banks of Tungabhadra river. Hampi was a glorious capital of the Vijayanagara Empire. Its architecture was unique, that is, no cement was used, stones were interlocked perfectly. The royal complex had arched domes and pillared halls surrounded by gardens, orchards and lotus motif. And temples were the center of life, especially the Virupaksha temples where Devadasis, that is, temple dances, performed. Festivals like Mahanavami were celebrated grandly. The kings watched from the Mahanavami platform receiving tribute from chieftains. But Hampi's glory ended in 1565 when it was defeated by Deccan Sultanates, that is Golconda, Bijapur and others. Today it stands in ruins but still tells stories of its cultural splendors. Next, let's travel to Surat in Gujarat, the emporium of western trade during the Mughal era. Along with the Cambay and Ahmedabad, it was India's link to West Asia and Africa. It was also called the gate to Mecca because ships carrying pilgrims to Arabia sailed from here. In the time of 1600, Surat was a cosmopolitan port, that is Hindu, Muslim, Armenians, Jews all lived here. The Portuguese, Dutch and English had warehouses and offices. The English writer Ovington in 1689 said around 100 ships from different countries anchored at the Surat at any time. The Surat textiles, especially with the gold zari borders, like the Kathiawadi sets, were so influential that their hundis, that is bills of exchange, were honored even in Cairo, Basra and Antwerp. But by the late 1600, Surat declined due to Mughal Empire's weakening and Portuguese sea control and rise of Bombay, where British East India Company shifted in 1668. Next, Masulivatnam on the Krishna Delta was the busiest spot on India's east coast. The Dutch and East India companies both competed to control it. Many groups, that is Telugu Chettis and Persian merchants and Golconda nobles and Europeans, traded here, making it vibrant and wealthy. But when Aurangzeb annexed Golconda in 1687, the port's fortunes changed. The English shifted trade to Bombay, Calcutta and Madras, and which became the new centers of power. The Masulivatnam slowly declined. Today it's a quiet town that once connected India to the whole world. Next, by the 16th century, European nations like Portugal, England and France were desperate for Indian spices and textiles. They formed East India companies to expand trade in the East. At first, Indian merchants like Mullah Abdul Ghaffur and Virji Ora competed with them successfully, but soon Europeans used naval power to control sea trade and forced Indians to work as their agents. The demand for textile grew, but weavers lost their independence. They had to work on advances, making designs ordered by company agents instead of their own. Slowly, Indian craftspersons became dependent. That is a sign of changing economic power. By the 18th century, new colonial sites like Bombay, Kolkata, Madras rose. Here, Europeans built white towns for themselves and forced Indian artisans and traders to live in black towns. This marked the beginning of colonial urban segregation in India. Finally, let's step back to the 15th century when European sailors began their Great Sea exploration. Vasco da Gama, the Portuguese sailor, sailed around Africa's Cape of Good Hope and reached Calicut in 1498. It took him more than a year. He lost 2 ships and most of his men, but he opened the first direct sea route between Europe and India. Around the same time, Columbus tried to reach India by sailing westward across the Atlantic, believed the earth was round. Instead, he discovered America in 1492, which he thought was India, and that's why it's still called West Indies. So that's it for today's class. I will upload next unit in coming days. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel.